Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Incredible experts the world over with amazing insights. They've usually been through some sort of transformative journey. They're here to help others now, give service to others. Sometimes it's through books, through retreats, workshops. They're healers. We've had a physician to the US president, White House doctor. We've had the youngest Delta Force operator ever admitted to Delta Force, naturopath on the side. Don't get the wrong reading into that. But we've had literally a Super Soul 100 teacher, Super Soul Sunday show guest, and just a wide range of incredible experts. German ballerina, state opera, world-class ballerina, again, all walks of life. Today, coming to us from Newport Beach, California, Cassandra Bodzak, absolutely incredible, intuitive. She's got a wide, diverse background, mother to two, um, teaches meditation, mindfulness, has a spirituality podcast, you name it. She's been around the block. And so I'd like to just welcome her straight onto the show. Angels, Positivity, and Love. Cassandra, you've got great energy. You're very open. And thank you very much for being on the show today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Okay, you do a lot for a lot of folks. You have an audience in a bunch of different ways. How did you start down this path in the first place? You've done TV, The Taste with Anthony Bourdain. You've done other TV. You've been an actress and stuff in the past. Where did this all come from, this intuitive streak that you've got? Have you always been listening to your gut, following your instincts?
I think yes, and also I've had moments that were like more pivotal shift points. Like I would say now, looking back, like hindsight is 2020, and I could see how, as a young girl, I was just very into all this stuff. Like I would go to old bookstores and I would look up like spiritual texts about crystals, about astrology, about witches. Like I would just that was like what was fun for me, like in elementary school. And my parents were like, okay, whatever, I'm not hurting anyone, and I was having a good time occupying myself, so I just kind of rolled with it, and that was always just like an effortless part of who I was. But it wasn't until college when I got sick with what I figured out was food allergies. But at the time, it was about 3 months where I didn't know. I just like, I could barely walk. I had tremendous pain, mostly in my torso, and nobody could figure it out. I was taking all these blood tests, going to the infirmary, like doing all the things. And they're like, you're fine, except I wasn't. And so that's what finally brought me to having like a conversation with God and my angels. And I was raised Catholic, so I had a cursory like knowledge of God and angels from that kind of background. I never fully resonated with a lot of the things that were, I wouldn't say a lot, some of the things that were said in church, but I also distinctly remember feeling Jesus a lot. And so I had this kind of weird off and on relationship with spirituality, divine, whatever you want to call it, right? And then at that moment, I was just so desperate and had done all of the like logical earthly things that one should do to investigate a health crisis, that I remember one night just laying in my bed in so much pain. I would have to lay kind of like starfish position, and I just put my hands on my heart and my stomach, and we just started talking to God. And it was just like, God, like, I do not know what's going on. Like, I've tried everything. Like, I need help. And that's when I really, like we briefly mentioned before about how sometimes angels come in bodies. And it's funny because the next time I went to the infirmary, it was like my last, they were testing me for leukemia. That was like the last test, right? I was crying as I walked out, and I saw a nurse that I had never seen before, and I had been going to the infirmary for months at this point. I knew most people, and I'd never seen her before. And she looked at me and she said, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, "Because I know something's wrong and they can't figure it out." And she literally just told me, like, look into food allergies. And this was, I mean, we're talking about 2008. right? This was a while ago. This was like not, I was going to the library. It wasn't like I'm gonna do a quick like Google search and there's like everybody and their brother now. Like I feel like food allergies are so common, but this was like really that first wave where it was more um, bizarre. It wasn't like a thing that like physicians like thought. So she kind of just said this, and I was like, I don't even know where to start. She's like, go to the library. Okay. So, but I did it. I was like, okay, I don't know this woman, but like I literally, and at the time, it's funny because I've called her and I've written about her in my book, and she's come up in numerous podcasts. And I was calling her an angel for a while before it actually connected that she was an angel, if that makes sense. Um, so that was my first kind of encounter. And then sure enough, I researched, did the things, eliminated, just eliminated certain things from my diet as one does, and then ate like a super clean diet and started like within like days, after months of pain, within days, I felt not only like better, but better than I had ever felt in my whole life when I eliminated a lot of these foods that were really bothering me. And so that kind of like kicked off the whole thing. It kicked off one, me realizing that I had like a direct connect to the divine, and that I really could, in this kind of like non-denominational, like no holds barred ways, just have a conversation and like reach out. Um, and especially around my body, I think in the early part of that was mostly around my body. And then, that therefore kind of spewed everything else in a weird way, because I started a blog. I was encouraged. I was in a sorority. My sorority sisters were like, they were seeing how I learned to cook through that, right? Because I couldn't eat in the dining halls anymore. I had to make my own food. So I would eat like super, like not fancy meals, like brown rice with various vegetables or something like that. But I was getting, a little bit more proficient at cooking for myself. And then I started, in a sorority back in college when we'd have charity events and we'd have like social gatherings. And we were always like baking pies and cookies and things like that. And I couldn't eat any of them anymore, right? Because one of the things I couldn't have was eggs. And so I started, making my own cookies and pies and, eliminating eggs, and then playing around with what if I eliminate oil, and like just, you know, and again, this was like 2008, 2009. This is like way before this was nowadays, this is like not really that special because everyone does this. I think it's more common. But at the time, I mean, some people literally would call me an alien, like people that obviously were not my friends. um, but but for my friends, and especially the girls in my sorority, they were like enamored by it. They were like, why would I eat the other stuff if I could eat this and it tastes good? Right. And so they really encouraged me. They're like, you should share this, because I'm sure there are other, especially like college age women, that are like looking for healthier options and don't even know where to begin, and like don't want to give up, eating the things that they want to eat or whatnot. So that's gave birth to the blog. And it was never a business endeavor. I was full on acting at the time, getting my BFA, going to New York, doing commercials, doing TV shows. Like that was 100% what I felt like the path was. And this was just like this part of me that was this thing. Like it just was what it was. And I was an inherently creative person. So it gave me this like other outlet, and I started having fun with it. And I did it. I did that blog on the side, so to speak, as just like a creative endeavor with really no agenda other than me enjoying it. Um, for so what's like 5 years or so, before things really popped off. And then Instagram was, yeah, and then eventually the book came from it, and that's my book, Eat with Intention, which Eat with Intention is, it's all about that whole journey, because the journey wasn't just recipes. The journey was like connecting to your intuition, asking your body what foods are going to feel the best, like actually visualizing yourself eating different things and seeing how it feels in your body, seeing what's, of your unique calibration, because I don't believe in like a blanket kind of modality. And yeah, and it really just took off on its own. As an actress, I naturally started doing YouTube videos. Again, they were like not great quality. I had no budget. I was doing everything, at home in my small East Village, Manhattan kitchen, and that was what one of the producers from ABC, this cooking show called The Taste, saw randomly. Um, and in this like kind of influencer obsessed culture, I like to say like I literally had like 50 views on that video. That was not a viral video that got the producer from ABC's attention. It just so happened, right? As I find it happens when things are just divinely aligned, that it was presented in front of the right person at the right time and they reached out to me and they got my phone number, right? um, and and they reached out and that's, that kind of just spurred this whole journey that I never consciously planned.
Hmm. Hey, so I'm going to ask about the taste in just a second, what that was
Yeah.
like. Can you paint the picture for everybody? But you've been on you've been in shape, eating well, Teen Vogue. I got to cheat and look at the list. Thrive, Huffington Post. It goes on, a long list. Was that part of this? You started getting a lot of press for recipes, advice, meditation, stuff like that.
Yeah, but I would say also, I think sometimes people automatically assume that all of that came from the TV show, and a lot of it wasn't. I mean, it was like an added thing, but they didn't add me. They weren't interested in me because of that. I think a lot of those people, a lot of the times, I would say 90% of what would happen, it would be someone that worked at one of those places, read my blog or followed me individually for their own stuff, and then like was like, hey, can we bring this girl in? Like, I'd love to interview her. Can she do like for Shape? I did like a whole recipe series for them. Um, for what was it? For Teen Vogue, we did like how to set up like a mindful apartment space in New York, right? So it was like the whole gamut. Um, and I really just think it was so much of that was just, being magnetic and like being on my path. And like I just kept on doing my thing and like trying to be of service and sharing and yeah.
Awesome. Hey, I spent 19 years in New York. I know what you're saying about, I mean, that's a probably pretty important article, setting up some mindful space in the tiniest crib ever. Tell us about the taste. Tell us about Anthony Bourdain. Tell us about your experience there. What they have you doing.
So that was it was a cooking show on ABC, and they had four different chefs, Anthony being one of them, Ludo Lefebvre being another, Marcus Samuelson, Nigel Lawson, all total like rock stars. And so they had me come on, and there were a bunch of us who would come on, and we would cook different things, and then we got our first choice as to what to cook the first time, and I did a vegan chocolate cupcake because that was my specialty. But for like the pre audition, what I actually did, because they warned us that like um, Anthony doesn't like sweets. So it was like a bold move to do a cupcake. But I did make I made like kind of like a Mexican chocolate, so like a spicy chocolate. And then I also did like this jalapeno cornbread cupcake with an avocado dressing that was like this kind of like fun take on a cupcake. Um, a not cupcake, I guess. But the cool thing about the taste was that I really feel like it was this like beautiful intersection of two of my strengths, if that makes sense. Like because of my acting experience, and I'm so comfortable in front of camera. I feel more comfortable in camera sometimes than I do in most of the time than I do in real life. And it doesn't make sense because it's a very like awkward medium when you're having like a producer and a camera guy and they're like in your face and one is like kind of shouting you to do stuff or whatnot. But it is. And so that combined with cooking, which is another place where like even to this day, when I'm going through something that maybe has made me, I don't know, just like not feeling in my like most like boss babe energy or whatever you want to call it, right? A little like lull. I can like get in the kitchen and just like make a meal and I feel like a badass because it's just something that like works for me, right? Like I can make really good food. And so it like inherently just like boosts that confidence. And I think those things that we have that we're just like, we don't have to try, right? For they're like things that like our natural essence just lends itself to. So we almost just need to like put our natural essence in an experience that allows us to do that. And then it boom. So the taste for me was like this, you know, heart opening explosion of joy to do because it was combining these two things that I love so much. And it gave me an opportunity in this kind of public setting to be a representative for a different way of eating, right? And to go, you know, when at the end of the show, Anthony Bourdain, and I like saved this clip because it was so emotional for me. Um, Anthony Bourdain literally told me I was his favorite vegetarian, right? And he was like, I didn't think I could like vegetarians. I didn't think any of them are cool, right? And and it was just yeah, so it was a lot of things. But the taste for me, other than being just such a great joy, also I think really solidified for me a lot of my manifestation teachings because it was a pinnacle of manifestation up until that point of then being able to, I remember when we stayed at this hotel in Universal Studios, they put us up because I was living in New York at the time. So they flew us out and put us up, put some of my family up too, so they could be out here with me. Um, and going into my room, and I had my very own like PA, like assistant person or whatnot. And then like they made sure I had everything I needed and told me like whatever my schedule every day and like all the things. And they left, and I was just like alone in my room, and I just started like crying. I was like, "This is unreal! Like, this is like that." I mean, that's probably like one of my top five best feelings of life. Was just like this, like, wow, like this gets to happen. This gets to happen. And I when I was on the show, I was really focused on being in the show. It was very demanding. But as that chapter came to a close, one of the things that I really focused on that inspired my future manifestation teachings was one, in that moment, I really wanted to be able to share with other people how they could experience moments like that because I knew that I wasn't special, right? Like I knew that like no one's special and we're all special, but like I wasn't like extra special, but I didn't have any connections. I didn't know anybody at ABC. I didn't even at the time like I mean, maybe I had like 2,000 people on Instagram, 100 people on YouTube. Some people read my blog. Who knows? I didn't even know how to look at the numbers back then, right? Like I wasn't, and like there was nothing, you know. I was literally an actress that was proud to be living month to month and paying her rent in New York off some acting gigs here and there, you know, and like we're waiting tables on the side when I had to, and was doing this thing. And so I really reverse engineered. And after I wrote Eat with Intention, that was the book for that kind of era of my life. Then my next thing was like, okay, look at what I created. Like, let me go back and see what were the things that I did that manifested this TV show, this book deal, this press, this booming coaching business, right? Like clients, people just emailing me, asking me if I would coach them, right? Um, and so that kind of gave way to the next level of like manifestation teachings, but that was a long-winded
Oh, no,
answer.
no. This is you're going right to where I wanted to go next, which is like, can you go back and can you know, pause it right there. Let's go back and dissect the manifesting stuff. What practices were you doing? Was it just a high vibe moment here and there? You were aware of it. How do you describe it and how can you share it with everyone?
No, it was intense. It was so I think what started in college with me like tapping into that that guidance activated some of my intuition, and in a non like magical way, for lack of a way, in like a very like basic way, right? Of me just like listening more to those little like whispers and me like following that, which kept me going with this blog and all the things. But then what happened when I was 25 was my little brother was diagnosed with this like horrible terminal illness. And he's still with us, but for the next 3 years, we didn't know how it was going to go. It was really dicey. I had to get surgeries, all this stuff. So when that diagnosis happened, I had a second spiritual awakening. I like hit the ground like a puddle. You know, my brother is, you know, straight edge, good guy, never done like anything risque or anything like that. So I was like, what would he do to deserve this kind of a thing, you know? So that was like another really hard conversation with God because I was pretty pissed at God. And I then had that was like, you know, not sleeping all night, crying all night in the shower, talking to God, why did you do this? Do it to me instead. He doesn't deserve this. Like all this stuff, just like, and then finally at like 6 in the morning, as I'm like in child's pose in the bottom of my shower, um, I just hear sleep and you'll know. And so, and it was like this blanket, I described it as like a blanket of peace washing over me. It just felt like someone just laid this blanket of peace. And I was okay. So I'm like sopping wet, just dry myself a little bit and like plop into bed because obviously I'm like exhausted. And I sleep, and when I wake up, the first thing I hear is meditate. And so, you know, again, I'm 25. I had like dabbled in things in chakras and crystals and things, but I didn't have any strong spiritual practice other than listening to my intuition and, you know, praying here or there, talking to God here or there. Um, and I open up and go to YouTube and I look up meditation, right? And I literally just, I started there and I started listening to different guided meditations. And then that was day one. And it's literally like all I did. Like I just all day meditated. And I was like, I love this. And then that kept kind of like leading the waterfall. So then I was already like a big bookshop nerd as I from my earlier days. So then I started like reading like Wayne Dyer, Power of Intention, A Course in Miracles, Louise Hay. Like that just started flowing more into my like it just felt like they kind of like called to me. And then I started taking meditation classes at this Buddhist monastery in Brooklyn. I started doing Kundalini yoga meditation classes. Like pretty much anything I could get my hands on, I just tried to see what resonated and what didn't. And the other thing that I added for myself was actually a coping mechanism that I used to do in childhood a lot, which was visualizing a better future. And I used to do that all the time in childhood as like a coping mechanism to just like be like, one day they're gonna see, you know? But for me during that time, because I was so upset about what was going on with my brother in present reality, I would spend, you know, I would do my little meditation. And like by little, I mean, I was actually meditating a lot, way more than a lot of people
Like eight
do.
hours?
No, I wouldn't go that crazy. I wouldn't go 8 hours. I was eating and like doing other like things in life, but I would say I would easily meditate for like 2 hours in the morning and then meditate like in the afternoon when I had space and then meditate for another like 2 or 3 hours before I went to bed. So I was definitely, you know, I was still like eating and like functioning in society. I wasn't working a lot during that time. Um, which just kind of weirdly, divinely happened. And then when I did work out, I think it was, you know, I would be on set for a day and then I'd, you know, have a day off. It was kind of like a spotty actor schedule. and waiting tables. So it was only like at night, and then I would have the whole day to myself. So I was like going pretty hard on it. And because I was doing that, one of the guidance that, so I'd do the meditation and I'd add a visualization to kind of like cherry on top it at the end. Um, and all of this, like literally making this up as I go, right? Just being like, this makes me feel better. This brings me peace. Nothing else is bringing me peace, you know? And it was through that that I really like the most prominent guidance that just kept on like coming through was just literally follow what lights you up, follow what brings you joy, do one thing every day that feels fun. And, that's kind of how I got the idea to start doing my YouTube videos because I was like, oh, this would be fun. Or I would like record recipes or do like tip videos. It was literally just me having fun. Like now looking back at it, it's kind of like how like a little kid does, and they're like playing pretend and doing their own thing. That's definitely what was happening. And sometimes it wasn't like, I mean, sometimes what happened a lot, one of the things that's really fun from that era is that one of my fun things would be making mango guacamole and eating mango guacamole and chips for dinner. Talk about like just like literally like my inner child was having a field day. Like it was just like, hey, I'm not gonna eat a real dinner. And I love mango guacamole. But it was so I just to give that contrast because they weren't always like super productive tasks, but they did the job because they really shifted my energy and my frequency, which at that point, the whole reason for me doing that stuff was so that when I had to be at the hospital with my brother, when I had to navigate these awful conversations with my parents, I could hold a level of emotional stability. So I was doing all this work really to be able to be in a situation that I really wanted to like crumble and be a mess in, but be able to like have that kind of build that tank for that. So it was kind of so yeah, so that was kind of like the basic of what was going on during that time.
Hmm. How did your brother come out of that whole process? If you can share his private life, did he become a more spiritual person or just went back to his normal being him?
I wish I could say he became a more spiritual person. He definitely believed more in the power of meditation. I'll say that because there are a few times in the hospital that, like after one of his surgeries, I'll never forget, he was um, they make him like walk around, right? But then they have all the monitors go off. So the monitors were going off. I was walking with him and I didn't know what anything meant. And the nurses come rushing over and they're like, he's at like cardiac arrest level. We need to get him in the bed. So they're getting him in the bed. And I'm like, Kent, like, so he sits in the bed and immediately I'm like, close your eyes. And I just guided him through a meditation. And literally, like, all of the nurses were like, what the F? Like, and they just watched all of his vitals regulate. And so he had some magical experiences, and he would listen to, and he still does when he needs it, listens to like healing frequencies and different guided meditations for sleep and stuff. But I do think that the experience for him, and he's still very much living with it, definitely makes him question a lot more than, yeah, than anything.
Are you ready for some lit sage? It's a staple on the show. I wish I could offer, mango guacamole, but here in
Let's do
California, yeah, I'm in Texas. It sounds good though. Okay,
it.
I'm going to light some sage. It doesn't matter if it's 2030, 2029, you're in Tokyo, you're in New Zealand, you can catch some sage. Time and space aren't exactly what you think it is. Hey, and this is a California company, Juniper Ridge. I'm not sponsored. I think I've asked twice over the last 2 years, but I got to be a little more intentful. I need to take a page out of Cassandra's book. I love their sage. Their incense is great. It's the one that's at all the Whole Foods, I think. I think they're still in all the Whole Foods. If you like incense, though, like sweetgrass sage, they've got a really good, consistent offering and a lot of flavors. Okay, so give yourself permission to let go, catch a little bit of sage, leave your eyes on the smoke. And what is my rule? 13 years of doing this, I can tell you my rule is my only bit of structure. Ask angels, universe, get you out of your head into your heart, help that schnoggin work. Even if you're stuffed up or you haven't used your nose in 2 years, you can be toucan. Follow your nose. Here's the sage. That was Fruit Loops reference, if anybody didn't know what that was. But why settle for sage? Sage is good. It's linear though. Ask for flowers, ask for ocean, go for a triple tiered tiramisu, even though they're not triple tiered, no calories. We're going to make it completely vegetarian, no eggs. Ask for what you can ask for. What will you allow for is the rub. And then Cassandra's going to talk about allowing more daily in a little bit. We're going to probably put up a couple photos of angels, maybe Anthony Bourdain, and you'll share what you have from them for all of us that is in alignment with how you already roll and help everybody, whether they're individuals, groups, and you're going to tell us more about that in the future. You are getting sage, I trust, in California. Did you
Yes.
get any flowers?
Jasmine.
Yay. And did you get any ocean stuff? Hold on. Catch Hawaii, Bali, Bora Bora, not boring.
Bora Bora Bora. Yes, Bora Bora. I love Bora Bora. I'll take that energy any day.
Okay, I'll put up a photo of an angel. This is light energy form. Her name's Joy. We'll do at least one angel and then Anthony. What's Joy have as a reminder for us all? She's an angel who's the emotion joy. She's a constant. I think Big Mary once said, "Love is everywhere. Open your eyes to find love." Just substitute the word joy in. Why not?
Yeah, joy is just reminding us, and it's funny because I got this message earlier, and it's aligned with what we just happened to be sharing about, is that like our most magnetic state is when we're having fun, is when we're in that kind of like childlike essence of play, and we're not taking things so seriously, and we're actually allowing those urges that we naturally have, like, ooh, that would be interesting to learn, or ooh, that would be fun, without always having to know the like what it's going to add up to, or is this going to be profitable, or how does this even make sense, like to follow that nonsensical urge towards just what feels fun. And then also just got about how when we're younger, like the reason like we associate that with our inner child or childishness is because when we're younger, we have more of that remembrance from source, that is what it's about. And so we naturally seek out that as kids. And then somewhere, and for all of us it's different, but somewhere along that timeline, things happen that start divorcing us from that more and more. And then you get to be an adult, and the whole like energetics of earth society comes in and also further tries to pry you away from that and says, no, like you have to do the logical thing, or you have to work in this sort of way, or all this like heaviness comes in that actually blocks us from the very thing that would make the money and make all the things happen, which is the whole irony of the whole situation.
Yeah, the density of adulting is such a drag. But I've got somebody to lighten up. We're doing a waypoint before we get to Anthony. I forgot. Audrey Hepburn. How could you not want to meet a fellow actress? Let her wink, move, smile, something in the photo at home. We all know photos can't move. That's adulting, what she was just talking about, the boring linear. Why settle for ho-hum when she can move in a photo? Your brain will say, I didn't just see the eyebrow go up, the wink, the smile. The heart says, oh my God, do it again. That was awesome. What has Audrey got for you as a reminder along this entire topical line that we're on?
That is all unfolding, that everything is unfolding in its divine order, and that you can just trust that you just need to keep showing up and showing up in your best way. And all these different adventures that you're meant to go on in life are they're there for you. And if you feel that the attraction towards it, that it's on its way.
Yay. And here's somebody we've already mentioned on the show. We might have taken some steps before the show. Here's Anthony Bourdain, who is a very special figure, very wry humor and perspective. What's he have to add into the mix?
Mm. Be curious. Be curious and allow people to witness your curiosity, because there are so many people that have that same curiosity that are not as courageous, to really put it forth. And yeah, I think that that's his reminder. Be curious about whatever it is, whatever it is that you feel interested in, and then allow yourself to share that curiosity as a gift.
Okay, we're getting to how can you allow for more daily for all of us watching around the globe for the next 20 years? It's going to get a lot more views in 2 years by the millions.
Yeah.
Manifesting this. But what I'm asking about is there's allowing more daily. And even if we stripped out every topic we've talked about to date in this show, that's the rub. What are you allowing for? We're getting to that in 1 second. I got to ask you one that's off the radar screen a little bit. You're an incredible communicator. You're completely plugged in, we'll say source or just aligned or just really finding your voice for a while now. Where did this all come from? Were you doing Shakespeare at age 6? Were you talking to the trees? Like, how you are a very solid communicator. You have had to have heard this before from a lot of people. When did it fall into place? Was it post university, before university?
Thank you. Um, I want to say I think that's one of the gifts I incarnated with, honestly. I think it's something that I can't remember. Like I think I was in sixth grade when I started doing plays. But even before then, there, and I don't know how much you get into this, but they're the Pleiadians. Um, I believe that I'm connected from that star system, and one of their things is a lot of throat chakra stuff. So for me, even as like a younger child, I was always the kid in class that would raise their hand to like read things out loud because I love speaking. And like even if I'm literally just like my stepdaughter, she doesn't really like reading her English books or whatnot. She's going through that phase or whatnot. And I'm like, lay on the couch, I will read it to you. Like I don't know, I just love speaking, so I feel like that's just one of my channels that I came in with. And I just followed what felt good. So I was like, this feels good. I'm gonna volunteer my services of my voice.
Well, it's funny you said that. I'm going to take a 30-second tangent on this in that in March, I've been doing this, I think, since like 2011, 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. And different angels were giving different backgrounds starting in March. So I'm just going to put a few up, show and tell, but it's all 5 seconds per photo. There's a Mac, everything plants, animals, and nature. Don't call her Mackenzie. But she said she's got a Pleiadian background with some Orion or Andromeda. I always have to write everything down. Joy's more cosmic, so just think everywhere like archangels. And for archangels, I call them rainbow pie slices. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, but I have them in so many different ways. Balls of light, etc. Here's a Heather who's more domestic, planet Earth. If you want to think Amazon warrior goddess or Africa, the continent. So she's more domestic, planet Earth. But Charlotte, Orion was her background. Now, that's the origin story. Angel today, I don't know how many, there's no time and space. She said serious. I'm not trying to be too serious, but she's like Moana, Pacific Princess. You get the idea. And then finally, from Andromeda originally, and I'm throwing in a fairy for no particular reason. She's not coming from anywhere outside like planet Earth. But there are people can meet Pleiadians, Illyrian, Arcturian. They can hack human humor. Half the time it's complete fail. The other half the time they are funny. So it's been quite a learning process since March. Um, when did you like suspect or hear about that Pleiadian background for you? Was it someone else? Was it you that had read about that, or did you just kind of vibe that in?
It was when I was going in, I had a whole other tangent here, but when I had another spiritual teacher that mentioned the Akashic Records to me. And so then I went home and I was actually going to look up more about the Akashic Records, but I was transported before I got to like do any research. And so through going to the Akashic Records and like meeting with my guides that way, that was one way that it was kind of brought up to me that I was from, it was more like you're from a star system. And then I was also guided to one of my very first coaches who you may know, Rebecca Campbell. Um, yeah, like she was one of my like years ago. We've known each other so long, and that was one of the things that really came up for her as well about my past lives and stuff that kind of affirmed. And then there's just been other. I've done things where you how do I say it? You kind of like meditate into that energy, right? And things like that. Read all of the, the bringers of the light and all, those kinds of books and stuff.
Barbara
And
Marciniak or something like that. Something
yeah, Barbara,
maybe.
yeah,
Yeah, something. Okay. I've tried to
yeah.
find her to invite her on the show, but yeah, that's a hard one to track down. So
Oh, I'm amazed that she's alive.
I think she is. I know it's been around a long time.
It's been around
So
so long. I thought the book was book. But yeah, so there's a lot of affirmation on it, and that's one of the things that I mean, their whole mission. I think all star seeds had different missions, and but yeah, it's one of those feelings. I think that's why at least I would tell my clients, right, is that a lot of times like the affirmation isn't like this big to do. It's just like a feeling of home, a
mhm.
feeling of like recognition, a feeling of like, oh, this was meant for me to know, to hear, to, and I wouldn't say it's not like I'm like doing much with it. It was just like affirmative, like the same that you would, learn about like your grandma, right? And you just be like, oh, wow, that's like, that really, it's interesting to like know about their life and stuff. It kind of feels like that, like ancestry.
Yeah, but you're not letting it influence the choosing of the color of the car when you're at the dealership. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I don't do, I'm not like manipulating my life based on that information.
But I mean, look,
Not
if
at all.
love's the fabric of the universe, it can't be surprising how big it is as a galactic community. It's one big giant pie of love, and we all get to take a bite. It's awesome. I had to write down my background because I forget everything. I'm one big vacuous person. It helps, though, for delivering the goods to others. Pleiadian mostly, Andromeda, and Sirius. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. If we want to do some of those figures later, maybe we will. We'll see. Or maybe we'll have you back on the show end of 2025. We'll talk after the show and we'll take bolder steps then. Talk to us about daily allowing, because that's the rub. We get so locked into the rat race. We think it's external, it's politics, it's one of those big banks that's still around today. We think it's the drama rama over there in the relationship. It's our sixth divorce, and it's been 6 weeks, six in a row. It's drastic. And so we get locked up in these life situations. We think things are happening to us. Talk to us about how everything is about daily allowing. You already have been through your life story. What's that all about?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's a perfect question for me right now because I'm just like 10 weeks postpartum after having a baby. And so one of the lessons that's really been anchoring in right now that I'm like loving talking about is like doing less but manifesting more, right? And really just like how the importance of logging into our daily vibration and our daily like anchoring is everything. So from a real like practical standpoint, what that looks like is fitting in some sort of meditation, however you can fit it into your day. Like to do it in the morning if it's possible, but don't let that stop you if you don't have that. The reason meditation is so important is because of all of the noise that we have. We have more noise than ever, and it's not even just the noise of like social media or like the literal noise of like the garbage truck outside your house. It's also like the noise of like EMFs. There's like noise of like collective consciousness. There's so much going on. So we need at least 10 minutes, the longer the better, but I know not everyone is like me. But the longer the better, but you need at least like give yourself 10 minutes of like shutting the noise off and allowing yourself to reconnect to your soul. I have like a divinely design your life meditation bundle, and it has three different meditations. One's even a walking meditation because I find for someone sometimes it's easier for them to do it while they're walking. But essentially what it is it's really you just drop into your heart, right? You're releasing the external world, and then you're calling in your guides, and I call them your divine support squad. So the way the way it comes to me is like I kind of have like an altar space in my heart that I let expand to be much larger than myself, and then I invite all my guides to the table, and then we just do a little like daily chat, right? So it's like, okay, whatever's on my heart, if there's something on my heart. And sometimes there are days where there's like nothing super specific, right? And I'm just, what do I need to know, right? What do I need to do today? And sometimes it'll be like, maybe there's that one thing you've been manifesting that you're going to bring to the table every day. And I just receive whatever guidance comes through. And I like to tell people that it's usually, sometimes people overlook it because the guidance is so basic, right? So some days my guidance will literally just be like sleep, right? It'd be like, you need more sleep. So just like take a nap at some point today, right? It's not, and sometimes it's hyper specific, like send Joe this email about X, Y, and Z, right? But it's never overwhelming. It's never an overwhelming amount of information. It's always something that's like very doable. And oftentimes it's a thing that like I don't know what it's for. So like I could assume I need to sleep because I need to sleep, right? But like I actually need that sleep because I'm recalibrating my energy. I actually need that sleep because during that sleep I'm going to have a dream that's going to give me another thing, right? Like we never know. I need that sleep so that then when I show up on the podcast in the afternoon, I'm in a different energy state than I would have been if I didn't have that sleep, right? I've gotten to the point, I'm sure you're at the point where I don't question it. I'm just like, okay, let's do it, right? Let's see what happens. So that's like the number one basic thing. And again, that doesn't have to be like an elaborate thing. I like to make it an elaborate thing because that's how I do like to have like my sage and my palette and light a candle and have like my, my altar. I like that, but that's not every day, right? Like with a newborn, that's not always possible. But when I breastfeed him or I'm meditating, I'm pumped, right? I like allow myself to have that time. So that's number one. And then number two is really holding the frequency of the the timeline that you want to tap into, right? The way I see is that it's like my girlfriend Casey always describes it as like a radio station. I love it. It's like these are all just like stations on the dial, these different timelines. There's like a timeline that you're living in right now that has your level of receiving for where you're comfortable with right now. And that goes for money, for health, for love, for success, for all of that. What you have in front of you in your life right now is what you're tuned into in this moment. And that doesn't mean it can't change, right? Like you were just kind of asking me a little bit about my brother, but you could ask that about like we've all seen it where maybe you have a good friend that goes through a divorce or goes through a breakup or loses a job or something like that. And sometimes people turn the knob and go up, and sometimes people turn the knob and go down, right? And both are accessible, right? Because it's an experiential incarnation here on earth, right? So consciously every day saying like, hey, this is cool. Like if you're listening to this, if you're even listening to this podcast, I can tell you that the radio frequency you're on right now is probably higher than a lot of what a lot of people are tuned into, right? But we can still tune it up even more. And for me, the inner vision is a powerful sense that I like to work on. And I just like to imagine like a little movie reel. What does the next level look like? How do I go through this day in that frequency, the frequency of the me that already has the thing that I want, that's already assuming it's there, right? And then that's just a little mental adjustment that I find is easier to do after meditation. But then like your work throughout the day is just noticing when that dial gets messed up, right? And trying to hold it. So what I often make some of my one-on-one clients do is just set little alarms on their phone, right? To just like check in where you at, right? And so you're like, because we all have like earthly things we have to do during the day, right? And so you get a little ping on your phone and it's like, hey, where's your dial at? Right? And in that moment, you're like, oh, wow, I was just stressing over this thing that's really not aligned with the vibration that I'm embodying. And so we make those like micro adjustments just by having that daily foundation. If you're really doing the work, it doesn't take that much time, but you have that moment of maybe being like, you're getting a latte or whatever, and you get your oat milk and whatever you're getting, right? And it comes out to like $8, as it does here in California or whatever, right? And if you're in a place of scarcity, when that little like barista thing says, "Do you want to leave a tip?" right? You might be like, "No tip. You charge me $8 for a latte," Rich. You're like, hey, nobody would logically argue with you for it. But, in that thing, that might be like, oh, if I'm like really tuned, if that's something I'm working on right now, then I would say, okay, well, what is the frequency? What is the frequency of having enough, right? And the frequency of having enough, I mean, it's either like one, yeah, maybe give them a tip, or it's like a non thing. It's like a no energy thing, right? There's no second guessing it. It's like, okay, whatever it is, what it is. I want to give a tip or I don't want to give a tip. But there's no energy around it the way there would be if you were having a lack conversation, right? And then looking at how you're doing different things in your day. So if you're like with dating, right? If that's an area that you want to expand on, I talk to a lot of women about dating, right? And it's like, if the frequency of you is the frequency of someone that's already in a loving relationship, that is married and has a partner that adores them, right? That's what you're tapping into. Your current frequency is someone that is single and dating, right? And wants that. Then you tapping into that is being like, okay, well, if I already had that amazing partner, like, what am I going to do? Well, I don't know, probably like read a book, focus on your work, go to the park, hang out with your friends, because you're not worried about it because you already have it. You're not going to be checking his text messages 7 times. You're not going to be, right? And like I said, even if you're on like an app or whatever, right? Doing that from a place of abundance. If you knew for sure that at the end of the year you're going to be married, and one of these lucky gentlemen that you're swiping through is going to be it, it's a totally different vibration that you're now swiping the app with. So that's like what I would do every day to just like exponentially expand my receiving. And I think it can be a fun practice that you just, if you keep up with it, it's really, I feel like, almost all you need.
Really beautifully spoken. Thank you for that. We're going to go hang a right-hand turn. We're going to do an exercise. You're a show host. You're going to tell us about the show after this. And then you're going to close us out because you're a professional at closing out shows and more. Stage productions, 6th grade to now. How many movies have you done?
I can't count.
Okay. Here's Joy and Angel. Just hear that you've got this. I'm going to put my hand up in Texas, only love and above, not my bill paying side, my heart. And really, it's going to be Angels. You'll put your hand up in California. We'll feel the vibe. Hear that you've got this and give me the thumbs up, but we'll feel the vibe. And I'll whoosh you rainbow light 3 times, low, medium, and high. You'll feel it up your back. Anything you need to have happen for momentum. It's basically the whole spiel you've been giving this entire show. I love it. But with your hand, what do you feel right now? Just a little bit of vibe, sparkle, warmth, hopefully.
Yeah, like gold sparkles and
Yay.
warmth.
Good. Okay, here's the first one. Nobody needs to breathe at all. Keep it low, just see what happens. I've got a microphone here low today, so I'm going to look like I'm blowing down here, but catch a little Hawaii breeze on your nose and catch rainbow light this way. Blame angels, don't blame Canada. Here it comes. And Cassandra, what was that like?
It was beautiful. Just
Did you
a
get it on your
reminder.
did you get it on your back, on your front?
I felt like it like just went past like this, like kind of like grazed my cheek area. Yeah.
Okay, the second one go a little bigger. It's acting class. Now you're 6 weeks in. You're like, I've got this, professor. I got the class. I'm getting the Oscar next week. Okay, here we go. A little bit more rainbow light. Have it go where it will. Was it bigger?
Yes. Yeah. That was like almost like I want not like I was I want to say like walking through a hallway of rainbow light, but it coming at me, if that makes sense. I wasn't really walking.
You're just trying to get back on the show. I know how this works. Okay, the third one's go big, go home. You're already hopefully home, so let's go big at home. Just ask angels to make it nice. Put the cherry on the sundae. Here it comes. I'm gonna blow twice. Catch a lot of Hawaii. And
That was really nice. That was like it was almost like a beautiful like fresh breeze like cleaning and clearing like throughout my whole home, just like this like circular motion, and the air feels like really like crisp right now.
okay, so we'll go to rhetorical questions. Thank you for doing all that. Do angels exist? Is it like absolutely yes, duh.
Yes, of course.
Okay, and is love
Yeah.
the fabric of the universe?
Yes.
Okay, give us one more duh to all of us that's like sitting in front of our face. Instead of this, you could let this be your Zen master every day. What's the third most obvious thing you want to fill in the blank here? What is it? We all need to just like, I wish I could have a V8.
We are all divinely designed.
That was it. Okay, and you're a show host. So tell us about the show, and then you're closing us out as if it's your show.
Okay. Well, yeah, I my podcast is called Divine Downloads, and I just love bringing on people that are talking about how to divinely design your life. And I do my own solo cast about how to divinely design my life. So if for me, it's like this free throat chakra resource that we talked about here today. Evolved from doing all these blogs to really just being able to share what's going on. So if you're into this kind of stuff, I think it's a great free resource, as is this show, of course, right? Well, thank you guys for being with us. Trust that whatever you heard today was meant for you. You were here, you were meant to hear it, whether it was in my story, whether it was something that the angels said, like however it came through for you, you were meant to receive this transition. It's not an accident that you pressed play on this podcast. And I'm sure that there are more podcasts where this came from. You can come back here and listen to more. And if you guys are curious about that meditation bundle that I did mention, I'll submit a link and you guys can get that for free. It's like I said, 3 meditations. I did them all under 15 minutes. So it can just be if you're like, I don't even know where to start, or I just want something that helps me like tune in, get into that space, bring in the Divine Support Squad and start working that, then that's a great place to begin. So thank you for having me. This is a pleasure.
Brilliant. Cassandra, you are incredible. Thank you for coming to us from Newport Beach, California. You're wonderful. Thank you for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Of course. Thanks for having me. This is a blast.